All right, what's up, everybody? It's BallietBran. So today we're going to have an interview and live stream with Jimmy Diamond. He's actually done a couple other live streams before, one with Hex Grassroots, and then one that I didn't hear about but need to go catch up on with Crypto Coffee as well. So without further ado, let's do the intro, and then once again, we'll kind of just, go into a flow of a conversation, hear about how he got into crypto, Hex, things like that. And I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about his story. So without further ado, let's do the intro and get right into it.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Yeah. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey, yeah! Say hey, hey! Woo-hoo! Stake that kick, 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 stake that kick. And every time I look up, price went up. I go to the store, come back, price went up. Every time I look up, price went up. No matter what I do, price still going up. Hell yeah. Ching, ching, motherfucker. Ching, ching. I am the book. Ching, ching, motherfucker. I just keep hitting jackpot after motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch.
Thank you, Richard, for creating and founding the most amazing and disruptive financial technology cryptocurrency ever. Thank you, sir. And nice streams, Mr. BallietBran. It's fabulous.
All right, so Jimmy, I guess if you want to just give me a thumbs up in the background, if you're good to go. Okay, cool. All right, he's all good to go. Let me just say what's up to the chat real quick. Once again, it's been a little bit of a minute, so feels good to be back and just say what's up to everyone. So we got Patrice Von Paris says howdy. We got Hex Hodl, Stake Hex, .xyz it looks like. Slice 'em and dice 'em. Yeah, that intro never gets old for me. So once again, shout out to Joe Hexotic, who was the one that actually made that. Funk Master Hex, the brand man's back. Yep. Let's see. Ching ching. We got Jerry Oaksmith. What's up? And let's see. The summer is so over. The rain is here now. Meh. Yeah, I mean, born and raised in the Seattle area, so I actually like the rain. But without further ado, Jimmy Diamond is ready in the background. So let me pull him up. And once again, this is someone that so I saw his stream on Hex Grassroots, and then I see him a lot on Twitter. And there's a whole bunch of people that I've seen on Twitter that you never really interact with a whole bunch on stream, or you don't see them much on stream, and then when you do, it's like, man, this person's got a really cool story, and they share a lot of similarities with everyone else as well. So let's bring him up. How's it going, Jimmy?
Hey, how you doing, Bran?
Hey, doing pretty good. Thanks for coming on. I know we had talked a little bit in the background, like the green room, for a couple of minutes, and you said that this is your third stream. So you had streamed with Crypto Coffee and then Hex Grassroots before. Yep.
Yeah. So they reached out, Hex Grassroots, a long time ago, and just asked if I'd be interested in doing a stream. And it's kind of out of my comfort zone, but I was like, sure, why not? And so went ahead and did it. Went pretty good. And and then I got to talking to Crypto Coffee, and we set one up as well. And I'm trying to get more, be more a part of the community and get more my face out there and stuff to talk about this stuff, because there's a lot of people in the real world that still have no idea about Hex or crypto, or it's not really in their wheelhouse. And so if I get out there and talk about it more, I hope that people that I know will see it and see the opportunity and get involved.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like I said, I didn't know about the Crypto Coffee stream. Otherwise, I would have listened to that to kind of prepare for this. But I do remember you saying in the Hex Grassroots stream, which kind of reminded me of a similar experience that I had in 2017, where you had said like one of the guys that you were working with was like a gold bug or something, or like he was some sort of, traditional finance guy. And you had said that you had told him about like Bitcoin or crypto, and he had said it was a scam. And you had said that like you didn't want to argue with him, but you kind of knew that he was wrong. I definitely know what you mean. I mean, nowadays crypto has been around for such a long time. When you consider, I think it's been like 14 years for Bitcoin. But you're definitely right that there's so much noise out there, and unfortunately, there's so many people that do have maybe, I guess, nefarious means or malicious motives that the people like yourself and myself that want to educate and do better tend to be the minority.
Yeah. It's still, it's funny. I feel like we're seeing the same thing with Hex right now that Bitcoin experienced in its early years, where even people that, know finance or know investing, they don't understand the particular product of Bitcoin or Hex or, and they just kind of write it off and disregard it. And I mean, it's funny because you form these beliefs if you dive into something and learn about it. And sometimes you just got to be kind of like, be sure of yourself and your investment. And, the people that were in Bitcoin, it certainly paid off for them. And we've kind of seen history play out, and it seems like it's kind of repeating.
Yeah, it's so true. And there's like that saying that, you don't really understand something until you teach it to someone. And then you realize like, oh, okay, either I really know what I'm talking about when you can explain it to someone simply, or, you might not really understand all of the mechanisms. And, to your point, if you can explain it to someone and get someone into just, alternative forms of investing, they really don't have to put much into it for it in the future to possibly, perform super well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is funny because, like the guy I worked for, I'm sure he's still of the opinion that crypto's, just total BS, or I don't know if he thinks it's a scam necessarily anymore. It seems like it is becoming more adopted, by the mainstream. Like Fidelity and big funds are kind of adopting it and offering it as part of their portfolio now. So things are definitely changing. It just takes time. I think with anything, it takes a lot of time. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm excited for the future. It's actually, and that's why I'm trying to get out there and talk about it more right now, is because it's in the bear market. This is the best time to buy, but everyone, like the majority of people are paying attention to crypto when it's all hyped up and when Elon's on SNL talking about Dogecoin. Like I know people that were getting in and just buying on Robinhood, buying Dogecoin because all their coworkers were doing it. And, the market kind of flushes those people out, and they might leave and maybe make a little bit of profit and sell at a loss, or, everyone's story is different. But I feel like the majority of people get in when the hype's there, and that's the total wrong approach to have. Right now is really the best time getting in, and even if you're not like buying heavy right now, because there's a lot of uncertainty about markets and what the Fed's going to do if interest rates keep rising, stuff like that. But if anything, just setting up like a good plan to dollar cost average and just average in and get like a good entry when the prices are low. That's, in my opinion, that's like a winner strategy, like very low risk, and could potentially play out like really well in the long run. I mean, because if we look at like, even if we use Bitcoin as like a indicator of, just general crypto market and environment, like we rarely see it dip this much, like down, 60, 70%. And it's happened, 5 or 6 times already before. So yeah, the macro environment could continue to be bad. And maybe we have like a rough another 6 months or a year or even longer. Who knows, right? But as long as you set up a plan and you're averaging in, I think it's going to play out really well, like in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Funding Jim said this on a stream a while back, which seems so simple when you hear about it, but once again, I don't think that most people actually do this when it comes to the investing. But kind of like you mentioned, make a plan and decide how you want to kind of tackle that plan. When you mentioned the dollar cost averaging, it's interesting how a lot of people think like all one way or the other, that they need to buy all at once versus kind of just throw in a few shekels, every other week or on a monthly basis. And when you say about the just kind of like the bear market in general, it is interesting how we're kind of conditioned that it's, what is it, like buy high, sell low, is kind of like the phrase that you hear a lot of people doing. And, really it should be the opposite of buy low, sell high. But once again, sometimes it's easier said than done when people are seeing, massive dips and it's their first time. And maybe some of them don't realize that kind of, as you said, with Bitcoin, that it's done multiple market cycles. It's gone back after doing an 85% retracement multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's kind of, it's a bummer when I see people that I know and care about, and I want them to do well. And they're like, oh, you know what? I can't afford to invest, or I'm waiting, for the right time for the market to bottom out or anything like that. And it's like, really, like, if you're not investing at all, in any like stocks or crypto or anything, you should at least set up a plan to dollar cost average, just to, even if it's like $10 a month, because I think that's not going to really move the needle for you in your life and like make you rich anytime soon. But it's like more the habit and the mindset of just, once it's set up and automatic, it's just, you just keep doing it. And you're like, oh, I actually can afford to invest just $10 a month. That's like a Starbucks sandwich and coffee or something. And so if you can do that, then you realize, okay, I could probably afford to like 20, or I could probably afford 100, and then over time, you're going to develop that habit of investing regularly, and it's going to just kind of compound over time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, how many people have, just traditional jobs where, for example, at the company I was working with, what is it, like X amount of, so you put in for the retirement account and then they match up to, I don't know, I think it was like 4%, something like that. But that happens, it happens automatically when you're getting your paycheck. So kind of like you mentioned, whether it's like the Starbucks or, some sort of frivolous thing that people are doing, if you really care about getting to some of these goals that people have, like a lot of people say like, oh, they want to be financially free in some of these things, but maybe they're not putting in some of the effort that it takes. And like you say, it really doesn't take much. It's just kind of, putting one foot in front of the other, kind of getting those good habits. Cause for myself, it was like, maybe it was like $50 a month. And, in 2017, buying a few Litecoin here and there, buying a small amount of Bitcoin. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then, a few months later, I heard about it again on the television. I was like, oh yeah, let me check the Coinbase. And then it was up, like 3 times from that. But do you maybe want to tell people, I know you told people in the grassroots story, but and maybe in Crypto Coffee Stream, I didn't catch that, but do you want to tell people like how you found about crypto, how you got into Hex after finding about crypto, and kind of some of the introduction story?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I've always been like, when I was a kid, I collected coins, and I remember my dad going on business trips and bringing like, coins from just his spare change from like Taiwan or Singapore or wherever he was traveling to for his job. And I collected them and always kind of had an interest in like money. And I was like, I remember learning about it really young because I got those coins and I'm like, oh, this is money, but I can't go buy anything with it. It's not worth anything here, at least, so it's like an interesting concept. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is money, but it's not really like worth anything. It is, but it's not. But then I got older and I kind of took an interest in investing and majored in finance in college, and got into Bitcoin. So I remember listening to Joe Rogan, and Andreas Antonopoulos was on there a couple times. And so I heard that, and that was during the bear market of it was like 2014, I believe, if I remember correctly, like the first one I heard. So the price of Bitcoin, I think, was like $600 or something like that. And I remember learning about it and like wanting to talk with everyone I knew about it, like asking my parents and, you know, people I respect that I thought were like smarter than me and could maybe like shed some light or confirm like maybe this has got like a future. Maybe this is something to keep looking at and look into. But everyone just seemed to be so negative on it. And like, you know, I guess they didn't understand it the way I did. So in a way that kind of talked me out of ever getting involved. And I just
Yeah.
kind of never took any action at that time. And then I watched the price run up, you know, to like 20K. And kind of started jumping in like a little bit, like set up a Coinbase account, started buying like a little bit, like just very like small amounts though, you know, because I thought it was like super risky. It's kind of scary when you're getting in the first time. But
Yeah,
then,
seriously.
yeah, and then, you know, the FOMO kicked in and I ended up like buying heavy. I had cash set aside and just pulled the trigger and just kind of like one of those moments where you're like, I can't help myself anymore, you know, just bought like a
Yeah.
big market buy. And then it seemed like literally like the next day, like it's probably not the way it worked out, but it seemed like that was the top, you know, it was like December, January time, but like maybe a
Yeah.
week or two go by and then prices start coming down. And then you're like, oh, damn, like, okay, it's just a dip, right? You know, the dip, just buy the dip and it keeps dipping. But yeah, it's like a tough experience, like learning that way. But I think it happens to a lot of people. But you know, I was kind of like it was money I didn't really need, and I was still working and had a good income and stuff. And so I just kind of stuck it, you know, just kind of like thought, oh well, if the you know, I guess if it fails and goes to zero, I'm just going down with the ship. That was my kind of
Right.
mentality. You know, it's just lost. I'm not going to sell at a loss. I'm just going to hold. And so that's what I did, and just kind of stuck around. And I think I bought like a little more over the years as prices were lower, but not really a whole lot to make like a huge difference. I didn't like double my entry or anything and get like a huge stack more. But I just kind of held, you know, and just held and learned a little more, you know, over the years, over time, just learned about it and kind of was pretty like solid in my belief that this is going to come back. And we already had like a little bit of history in the market cycles to kind of show us that. But, you know, as more time goes on, it's kind of easier and to think like this is probably going to be something that's going to stick around for a long time. So then, yeah, as far as like Hex goes, I actually found Richard Hart's channel on YouTube just randomly. You know, it popped up and I stumbled across him chatting with someone. And, you know, obviously he's an interesting guy. He's kind of a lot different. He was like in his dark cave with his candelabra, which I noticed you got one too.
Oh yeah, just a shout out to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Tribute.
but yeah, you know, he's funny because most people don't like him when they discover him. And I was kind of in that camp. I feel like I thought,
Totally.
you know, you see him and you're just like, what's this guy trying to do? Like, what's his deal? You know, he's just different and kind of weird. But the stuff he says, he's like smart, you know, and there's something you're like, should probably be listening to this guy, and I could probably learn a lot from him. So yeah, I kind of stuck around, followed his channel for a while, and kind of been like tuned in ever since. And yeah. So I kind of, maybe it's a little bit of luck, but like it's also kind of, it's like luck to be there at the right time and discover it. But I think you got to have put the work in to like be intelligent enough to like actually keep learning and keep listening and be persistent, you know? So yeah, I kind of got lucky and got into Hex in the beginning, and it's awesome because my whole mentality with Bitcoin was, like I said, I was just going to hold it as like a retirement plan. You know, it was part of my like, I figured like I have a 401k and I have my Bitcoin and I'm just going to hold it forever. But then Hex offered like a better alternative to that. I feel like where you can actually earn yield, which is awesome, you know, and a high yield. So yeah, rather than being like a digital gold where it just sits there and it's unproductive, you can actually, it's more like a productive asset where you're holding the asset, it's going up over time, and you're earning yield on top of that. So that's compounding your gains, right? So yeah, I kind of like was on board with the idea from the beginning. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
No, that's super cool because I didn't realize that until going back to the Hex Grassroots interview or the stream that they did with you. And yeah, I didn't realize until that stream that, like you had said, you had been here since the beginning. And one of the things that you had said that I think is so profound that I did too, man. Because same thing, I was like, okay, this crypto, it really seems like it's got something to stand on. And then, like you mentioned, you buy the dip and it keeps dipping and it just keeps dipping. But you had said in that stream, and I think you'd kind of alluded to it here, that you didn't necessarily like completely check out, right? When the top happened, you were still kind of doing some more research or trying to see if this was still legitimate, like, or did you kind of take a break and come back? Can you maybe explain some of that? Because when you mentioned finding Richard Hart and Bitcoin Hex and things, I know a lot of people that were still in crypto during that bear market.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I did kind of check out a little bit in the period learning from like learning about Bitcoin and becoming interested in it back in like 2014 or 2016 or whenever it was. But that's because I didn't have any skin in the game. I think, it's like I learned about this thing. I thought this has potential. And then I went out to people I knew and was like seeking like validation, like trying to get somebody to agree with me and be like, yeah, totally. Like, or like teach me more about it. But I just didn't have that. There was nobody I knew that, that really like knew more than me on the subject. You know what I mean? Like nobody was really paying attention. So, yeah, I guess that's when I kind of checked out and kind of missed the boat on getting in before the market ran up. And then once it ran up and I literally remember like being up in, are you familiar with California at all? Like Mammoth Mountain? I live in California. So I was, okay. Well, it's the biggest one of the biggest, besides Lake Tahoe, it's like a big snowboard mountain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was out there snowboarding, and I remember we're standing there waiting for the bus to pick us up, to take us up to the mountain. We're in all our gear with our boards and stuff, and you like overhear people talking about it, like at the snowboard mountain, or your taxi driver, or like your hairstylist. Like everybody's talking about it, and that's the time. Like once you've been through a few cycles, that.
Yep.
That's the time where you're like, those are all the signs. You're like, okay, it's the top, right? Like it's the market top.
Yep.
But it's hard to know that when it's your first time, right? When it's your first cycle. So, yeah, I guess I checked out, at that time before I was in, but once I had skin in the game, it was kind of like something that I couldn't really not look at, I kind of became like obsessed a little bit, and I just kind of all wanted to learn more and more about it. And so I've kind of been tuned in ever since.
No, that's cool. And, you mentioned a good point about, and I would agree with this completely too, whether it's the market cycle. I would kind of say that this, I mean, maybe you'd agree with this, but this seems to kind of be like the first, I don't know, official market cycle of Hex, it seems. I mean, obviously, big payday, we dropped significantly. When it first came out, we dropped significantly, things like that. But would you kind of agree that this is like the first extended, bear market or market cycle that we're going through right now?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we could look at the chart and go, say like, oh, Hex has dropped, 80% or 60% or, in that range a couple times. But yeah, for sure, it's never been down for like a year like it has now. So for sure, this is the first like bear cycle where people are getting flushed out, and it's really going to put people to the test of like who really believes in this and who's sticking it out for the long term, or who is just here to make a quick buck and thinking they were smart. Yeah, for sure. It's and it's tough to go through these, but once you've been through one or two before, it makes it a little bit easier, right? But I do feel for people that are maybe bought at high prices, and they're it's kind of tough. It does suck. I've been there, right? I mean, I'm still there. I'm here with you too. I'm down too. But but once you've done it a couple times, it's just kind of like, okay, like I figured it was going to happen eventually, right? I think we
Yeah.
all know
Yep.
if you've been in crypto for a while, you know that it's the bear market's coming eventually.
Mhm.
So as long as you're ready for it and you have the mindset and you're kind of like okay with it and you can wait, and delay gratification, then it makes it a lot easier to just kind of chill and wait.
Mm.
Just stay and chill, man. That's the
Yeah.
secret.
Well, it's so true, and you had brought up a good point where it does kind of separate, not necessarily like the weak hands, but it just, so many people, they get into crypto or other investments in that hype cycle, and then like you said, when everyone's talking about it, because same thing, dude, people out of the freaking woodworks that I was working with, they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, Bran, and this was at like 50 cents, and they're like, "Hey,
Mhm.
Bran, I heard Hex," and I had told them about it at like 1 or 2 cents. All of a sudden they're calling me and blowing up my phone at 50 cents trying to get in. And it is crazy how some of that psychology works. But you'd also mentioned the term like stake and chill, and that you've been in Hex since the beginning. And I'll kind of agree with what you had said at the grassroots stream, that a lot of us didn't I mean, I can only speak for myself, but some of the sentiment I've heard from other people is that, we didn't really know how profound some of the staking was when Hex first came out. All I had really known is that I kind of got wrecked with some of the Bitcoin and LTC that I had bought in over the years. And then when I sold that into Ethereum, I kind of just took some of Richard's advice of just a longer pays better, staking and chilling. But how would you kind of say people could better understand, what separates, like the power of the staking, and why someone had mentioned Patrice von Paris. They say, bro, I got in at 20 cents. Some people I know got in at 30 or 40 cents. And obviously they don't like to hear, some of the terms of, hey, if you can lower your dollar cost average when it's lower, you kind of lower your average basis. What would you say is some of the tips that you could give to some of those people? Because obviously the first time it is kind of the hardest, and then the second and third times it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up a good point. If you, if you have income and you're investing, the bear markets are the best time to do it. So if you can continue to accumulate and continue to average in at low prices like this, I mean, you're getting like at 90% down, you're getting like a 10 times better deal almost. So, it's kind of like a no brainer to add to your stack if you can. Um, I mean, that'd be like probably the best strategy, I'd say, like going back to what I was saying before. Um, but yeah, as far as like the staking mechanisms, like I always looked at Hex like, like with Richard was always in the very beginning, that was the goal, right? Was to outperform Ethereum and Bitcoin from their launch, like the 10,000x thing. That was the goal. And nobody knew if it would do that or not. Like it was just kind of like, and he always was very honest about it and said, this is just what other things have done. And
Yeah.
so, if you're logical, you would assume that this can do it too, right? Because it's as good, if not better. It gets you to lock up your coins and hold long term. So that's what causes price to go up, right? Is more buying than selling. So yeah, I mean, I would just sorry, what was the question? I kind of lost track there.
Well, so I guess for someone, because I know people, yeah, I just know people that are close to me that had gotten into Hex. They had gotten in early, but they had also seen it run up, and then now they see it at like 3 cents. And one of them asked me the other day, and they said, "Hey, Bran, is Hex dead?" And obviously I told them that it wasn't, but I guess what would you kind of recommend to those, aside from just like the dollar cost averaging and things like that, just to
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of just recommend to wait it out, or that this is similar to other market cycles such as like real estate or stocks? Like, how do you kind of educate people in something that's kind of like a newer asset but is also doing the same kind of cycle that everything else has done?
Yeah, I mean everything goes in cycles, right? Like everything, they're all a little bit different. But some of the traditional advice, of like fund managers of just dollar cost average. That's why people set up retirement accounts in the way they do, where they're just always buying, like regular buys, buying in, whether the market goes up or down. Obviously, this is different. It's more volatile. It's different, but the same kind of like strategies can also work pretty well. So yeah, I would say just stick to a plan and dollar cost average in for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
and as far as like Hex goes, like I guess risk management. I always kind of looked at it like it's what you're really looking for, like when you're in crypto. I feel like is like because the stock market's a pretty good investment over time, right? Like if you're going to do okay. It's not great, but it does pretty well, right? I think it's like a 10 or 14% average return if you're in for like decades.
Sure.
But then Bitcoin outperforms that, and that's a little bit better. So you're always like looking for just a little bit of an edge. And so I kind of looked at Hex like, okay, do we think this is going to outperform Bitcoin? Like, even if it doesn't do these amazing things and do like another 10,000x or a little, it's solid. It's been around for years. It's like nothing's changed. Like we watched all these things, Celsius, Luna, all these things in crypto, like just fail and implode. And Hex is still ticking along, working just fine. So yeah, I really do think that it's here for the long term, and that it's going to continue to work as designed. And once the bull market comes back, I think it's going to pump again and do great. So it can be a dangerous thing to always be like looking for the next shiny thing. I don't know if you're going this way with that, but like maybe some people that bought higher, they're looking for like, this isn't doing well anymore. Like what else should I be looking at to move my money to? Right? And it's like, you don't really need to do that or to take on risk to do well. Like there's very few things in crypto that I've like, when I got in, I bought like a bunch of crap that I didn't understand. But once you start researching and looking at the crypto space, like there's almost nothing I'm interested in. It's like 99% of it is just like not really financially sound. And you want something that's going to stick around for the long term. You don't want like just the next coin that you think could get a quick pump and you can make some money and cash out. I've always looked at it as like a long-term play. And so, buying and staking Hex can be like, an excellent alternative to some of the traditional like retirement accounts or investments or things like that, because I've kind of looked at it like when you're earning yield, especially at a high, like if you're staking it out several years and earning like a 40% APY, most people don't realize, but at that rate of return, your money doubles in like 2.5 or 3 years or something like that. Yeah. And then, so if the price of the coin pumps, you basically compound your gains ×2 or times, in an even more extreme case, if you're staking out like 10 years, you're like triple or quadrupling your money. So any gains that the price of the coin makes, you're just compounding that by however much yield you got, which, doubled up your stack anyways. So it's like, I think that's huge and often overlooked because people don't understand how it works maybe. But I don't know. It's hard to find anything in crypto that I'm like really stoked about. It's very few. Like I'm always trying to keep an open mind too, and like look at the next thing. But there's just not a whole lot out there that's really solid.
Well, and like you mentioned, Hex, December 2nd, 2019 was when it launched. And you're right. It is, I think it is still kind of, ahead of its time because, you had mentioned things like Celsius. And that's the exact opposite of what crypto was designed for, right? You're not supposed to have counterparty risk and things like this. But people obviously do like to earn yield. They do like to earn interest. And it's cool that Hex does all of that while being able to maintain, your seed phrase and possession of your keys. And like you say as well, I think some people, when you mention some of the APY, maybe they see that and they just think like, man, there's no way that, I don't think necessarily people they might not dive into all of the details. Like, okay, if you have 100% of people staking, it's going to be a 3.69, but we've only got, I don't know, 10 or 11% of the total people staking, which is why the APY is so high. But like you said, people could really benefit as far as passive income or some sort of investing strategy if they had kind of taken the time to do a little bit of research and maybe set up a staking ladder. Is that kind of like with people that you've gotten into crypto and into Hex? Do you kind of tell them about a staking ladder, or kind of how do you proposition some of the staking?
Yeah, for sure. I would. I think it's all like individual. It's
Sure.
You got to start with like what you're comfortable with, because you don't want to stake too long and then you fudge yourself out of it and early end stake, right? That's the last thing you want to do. So, yeah, I mean, I would research it for anyone out there that like learn about it and understand what you're getting into and why, But yeah, staking ladder is a great strategy for sure, because then you have a little bit unlocking all the time, and you're also getting an average higher yield, right? Than just staking it all out and never being able to touch that. But yeah, I mean, longer pays better, right? If you understand the mechanisms of the system, you get more yield based on the longer you stake. So yeah, I think probably most of the people watching know most of that, though, right? Do you think does your audience know most about like how staking works and all that? Mostly Hexicans, huh?
Yeah, I would think they do, and the question was kind of more so designed for like some of the people, like some of the friends that I've onboarded, or just some of the other people that I've onboarded that maybe they saw some of the gains in just the the coin itself versus some of the staking, and they're like, well, why would I? Maybe they're kind of more short-term gratification minded versus, hey, you could literally sit on your thumbs and instead of stake for a year, do a little ladder and be earning more Hex on a daily basis. But to your point, I think most of the people that are watching and listening do already know about that.
When I figured that out, though, that part, the longer pays better, because I didn't really get it at first, and I set some stakes before big payday, and then I actually early end staked them, and then went out longer because I understood like how powerful it is. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it was so long ago I kind of forget and maybe overlook it, but yeah, it is a very powerful like aspect of the system, right? So for anyone that doesn't know, like definitely go look into it and try to understand the math behind it, because yeah, longer is much better.
No, I had to do the same thing because RG3 was one of the first people. I mean, he was the first person I had met in person, and that was really cool too. It kind of solidified like, okay, I've streamed with this guy, seen Hexologists, all these other people, but seeing them in person was really another story. And that was before big payday, November 19th. And anyways, he had kind of convinced me the same thing too. He's like, hey man, so how are your stakes doing? And I was telling him. And same thing, a lot of it was primarily, it was weighted until, a year or two after big payday, and some of them directly after big payday. So I'm glad that, you had mentioned for yourself or myself too, had been able to end those early when they were already at 50% served and not necessarily get penalized,
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably something I should revisit and look into a little more so I could explain it better to, people that might not be familiar, because that's kind of what I'd like to start focusing on, is just sharing more information of just about investing in general. It doesn't have to be strictly Hex,
Yeah, of course.
I think people outside of crypto are more receptive to whatever message you might have, if you're not just trying to show them one specific thing. Like, look how great Hex is, right? Like, because it's all going to go over their head if they don't, first of all, know that. I think I heard this on Cryptographics and Maxim. Do you know that guy? Maxim Broadcast?
Yeah.
They were talking about how the worst way to convince someone of anything is tell them all the reasons they're wrong, and
Yeah.
like just hit them with a bunch of
That's so
facts
true.
and be like, yeah, here's why I'm right and you're wrong. And they're going to put up a guard and they're going to be unreceptive to it. But if you can show
Yeah.
them, first of all, that like, look, I want to help you and I care about you and I want the best for you and that kind of thing, then they're going to listen and they're going to really listen to what you have to say and kind of trust that you have good intentions for them, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. So
It's so
yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah. Did you see that one? It was a great stream. I like those guys.
Yeah. No, I did. And, you know, same thing. So once again, for yourself, I didn't realize that you had been in since the beginning. And same thing with the Maxim guy. He kind of just came out of nowhere, in my opinion, at least, during like the Hedron and Icosa stuff. And then it was either Cryptographics or someone else that had first streamed with him. And I really love that, man, because you know, you hear a different perspective. I mean, everyone's heard myself or, you know, Hexo and all of the other people like a million different times. And so it's refreshing to hear your perspective, his perspective. And you're right, man, especially you're right. You definitely don't want to come off as pushy, you know, because I've done sales jobs before that were, you know, cold calls over the phone, and they were like the definition of high pressure sales. And especially for anyone, but especially myself, that's a huge like immediate like red flag or turn off when, like you said, the person's not really speaking to the customer. They're kind of just speaking to, you know, clearly something that seems like it's just benefiting them. And then it automatically makes them kind of standoffish of like, wait, why do you want me to get into this crypto or why do you want me to buy XYZ product, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it helps a lot. Like I'd like to think I have like a little more investing knowledge just in general about markets and real estate and crypto, kind of all the above. You know, I kind of try to just study it all. And I think my goal, like in life, I guess, you know, going forward is kind of to share that information with people. So, I mean, if there's some people that just aren't on board with crypto, they still think Bitcoin's a scam, you know, so you're never going to get those people into Hex, right? Like they're never, if they just don't like crypto already, I think it's kind of a lost cause. But if you could show them, if you could like build a channel just sharing investing knowledge in general, and people are going to see that and be like, oh, wow, you know, this guy knows about the stock market or real estate or these other things I'm into. And then they discover, you know, crypto or Hex on their own and learn about it, then they're going to be a lot more receptive to it. You know, I think that kind of goes for anything in life. Like I noticed, you know, like even when a friend like shares music with you or something, you know, I don't know if you're into music, but I'm pretty into music. And
yeah.
There's like a certain, you get some like sense of gratification from discovering it on your own, like being in a music store and like digging through some records and like finding this rare thing that you like discovered and it's super special to you and you never forget. But if someone else like pushes it on you, like, hey, check out this song, you got to listen. Did you listen yet? And you're almost like, I don't think I want to anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. People have to kind of figure things out on their own. Like you can lead them to it, but yeah, like just pushing it doesn't really work sometimes, you know? And I think we see that on Twitter too. Like there's a lot of like, Twitter's an interesting place. I actually got on Twitter because of Richard and just to keep up on Hex and everything. But, yeah, the whole, like my whole sphere on there is all crypto and Hex related. But yeah, people can be pretty pushy and kind of mean on Twitter, including myself. Like I need to work on that. I think I noticed like if people were like, if I was face to face with someone, I wouldn't talk to them the way I talk to people on Twitter, you know? And so I'm trying to be more mindful of that and just be a little more chill. So that's something I've always respected about you too. You're always chill and down to earth. And even though I think you're younger than me, like there's something, you know, that people can learn from that, you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. And I don't know, my philosophy on that, I mean, it's not always been that way. You know, there's been, especially earlier on in life, you know, I don't know, the way that I've always seen it is there's so much, in my opinion, like, especially on social media, but negativity, right? And people constantly talking down, that's super easy to do. You know, it doesn't take a genius to be able to find something negative in the world going on, or to pick something, you know, separate something that's pretty bad. But to do the opposite of, you know, hey, to see, you know, the light through the tunnel, or like the needle through the haystack thing, and be able to pick apart some of the good traits, especially during times where, you know, people might not be the most jolly, you know, and things, I think is an important skill to have, you know. You know, my mom would always say, like, if you don't got something nice to say, don't say it at all, right? And you're right, where especially over, you know, the keyboard and over our phones, that we tend to, like you said, say things that we wouldn't say in person, or unfortunately being able to use like anonymous accounts, and you see people, you know, randomly attacking others that would never do that in person, because, you know, the other person would check them. But so let me ask you something. You had said, because I'm curious about this, and I saw Funding Jim in the chat as well, and he had said, he said that he's looking forward to the stream. We got a few other people as well, Davis, and I think that's about it as far as that goes. But so, in Cape Figure as well. How's it going? But you had said that you kind of have a little bit of experience with, you had said real estate and some of the stock market. Let me ask you, as far as like real estate goes, like, or at least in, you know, the US economy, where do you think it's heading? You know, like, do you think we're kind of at the peak of the bubble, you know, popping, or can you maybe give some of your, I don't know, analysis or information on what you've been following?
Yeah. You know, the future's unknown. Like I don't have a
Sure.
crystal
Yep.
ball. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does certainly seem like we're in for a little more pain. You know, I don't think it's
Okay.
going to be like a devastation like 2008, you know, and I hope not. But I mean, my long-term plan is to buy more real estate. So I'd be happy if prices kept coming down a little bit,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
natural after they've run up like they have. So, um, yeah, the real estate kind of like moves slower than the stock
Mm.
market. So yeah, we're seeing that like pull back like a little bit. And it mostly it's determined by the Fed funds rates usually, or that has a big
Okay.
part in it at least. So if the Fed keeps raising rates, then real estate's probably going to keep coming down.
Okay.
And which we're planning on doing, I think, to like 8% is what I'm hearing. So yeah, I mean, it probably will keep coming down a little bit, but I don't think it's anything to be worried about, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a much different asset than crypto. Yeah, much different. Yeah, I think we could have a little more pain in kind of all the markets, but I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Like nobody knows. There's certain people I know that think we're in for like a like 1940s kind of scenario where
Yeah.
everything's gonna
Yeah.
be doom and gloom for like the next decade. I don't really necessarily think that way.
Right.
But is it very possible that all of 2023 could be a rough year? It's like, sure,
Mm.
that's absolutely possible.
Mm.
So you never know. But as far as like buying real estate, most people buy with, they finance it and they get a loan, they get a mortgage. Yeah. So if rates keep going up, there's going to be less buyers and that's going to hurt the market. So yeah, it's kind of what I would see. But I mean, if you can afford it now, you can always buy now and finance it and then refinance when rates come lower again if they do. So
Mm. Okay.
yeah.
No, that makes sense. And like you had mentioned, because I've heard some of the same thing as well, where like you said, some people are really one way or the other as far as the scales go. And I guess it doesn't hurt to, it's not like you have to put all your eggs in one basket of it going, like you mentioned, to the 1940s style, but it also doesn't hurt to hedge some of your bet as well, kind of like in crypto or with real estate as well. But going back to crypto, where do you think we are with Hex, like in the market cycle? Like, because you had mentioned, the next bull run, and we're kind of in our first official bear market and things like that. When I look at some of the sentiment on Twitter, and not that every market is solely based on sentiment, but But where do you think we're at? I mean, do you think, I mean, obviously we could definitely go a little bit lower, but as far as like a time frame, like, do you think we still have, a couple more quarters to go? Obviously no one's got a, crystal ball per se, but what do you think as far as, being in crypto for, many years and kind of some of the sentiment? Where do you think we're going?
I mean, it kind of feels like Hex bottomed out, but a lot of people kind of think that, and usually when
Yeah,
most people think something, then it's the opposite is actually the
that's
case.
true.
I don't know. So I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, nobody knows, right? It could be like last cycle we saw Bitcoin do something similar to the like where it kind of dipped and then it flatlined, and then they had that what did Richard call it, like a trapdoor or whatever.
Oh
It
yeah,
was kind
yeah,
of flat, and then it just instantly
yeah.
dipped. But then that was the bottom, and it recovered pretty quickly. So maybe Hex does something similar. Maybe we have like a quick dip down, and and then that's the bottom, for real. But I mean, it's so close. That's why I said it's like the best thing to do. You never know. This could be the bottom, or it could go down a little more, but I couldn't see it going down a whole lot more, So
Hmm.
if you just set up a plan to dollar cost average in, it's going to guarantee that you get like a good entry either way, right? So you're kind of hedging your bets. Obviously, given that it does recover, which I think it will. But
Right.
yeah, it's never really good to try to time the market and wait. It's better, like, time in the market is better than timing the market, as they say. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, like a lot of people in crypto probably don't like hearing this, but if the macro environment continues to struggle, I think crypto continues to struggle too, like all
Yeah.
risk on assets, right? So if Bitcoin is still in a bear market, then probably most of crypto will be too. But on the other hand, it seems like Hex is, at least in the past, kind of led the market, right? Like it pumped early, and then it did Bitcoin actually dumped first, huh? So, but at
Yeah.
least it pumped in the bear market, and then like pumped before Bitcoin and the rest of the market pumped. So I don't know. It's hard to predict, but it certainly feels like we're very close to the bottom. And so, like I said, the best strategy is probably just dollar cost averaging, because it's kind of like a fool's errand to try to like predict these things, because you're probably going to be wrong anyways. So if you just set up a strategy that kind of works well in your favor either way, then that's kind of a winning strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and especially, I mean, right now, none of us know when PulseChain is going to come out, right? But I mean, as you kind of say, with the dollar cost averaging method being kind of just tried and true, that if someone's kind of accumulating some of their position right now, then whenever the hard fork does happen for PulseChain, then they're going to have a copy, versus if they had waited until after, obviously they'd have to buy it on two separate chains if they were going to buy it on two separate chains. Are you excited for PulseChain?
I am. Yeah. I'm not playing that game though. I mean, I got my sacrifices in, and I'm just, I'm not trying to keep any cash on the side to buy the dip or anything. I'm just got my coins copied over. I'm not trying to buy Hex at lower prices. I'm just chilling. I mean, I guess for other people that maybe miss the sacrifice or don't have what they feel is like enough Hex, I kind of get why they're thinking that way. But you want to, like, I'm all about like kind of playing it safe. Like I said, with the DCA strategy, like you want a strategy that's going to work well in your favor either way. Like it might not be the best, like you might not time the market perfectly and get the very best prices, but you're going to do pretty well, right? And that's kind of like, really, like when you're in crypto and you're making like 100x in the next bull run, does it really matter? Like if you got it like perfect order execution at the very bottom of the market, and because it can go the other way, and you can make mistakes and get things wrong.
Yeah.
And then you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. So yeah, I've always been about kind of just the safer route in that regard.
Yeah, it's so true, man. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this, but say, I don't know, say the price is like 3.3 cents right now, and say someone doesn't have any bag, but they're interested in Hex, and like you had kind of said, where some people, they'll say like, okay, instead of buying right now, which is already at like a 95% dip or 94%, I want to wait until it reaches 2.9 cents or 3 cents. And actually that happened to not to myself, but when I was getting into Ethereum again in the bear market, when the Hex AA had launched, I think like the cheapest Ethereum that I might have got was like 92, 93 bucks. I think the cheapest it went was like 85. But people were saying that like it was going to go back to like $6 to $12 and things like that. And so, kind of like you had mentioned, where it doesn't have to be all one way or the other, kind of just keeping a more conservative strategy of, no one's going to get the exact tops or the bottoms, but if you can kind of just have like a decent plan, then you're going to win either way if the speculation that you're doing does go back up the way that some of us think it's going to go.
What's funny is I've tried to play that game too, where I had like a number in my head. I'm like, if it goes to I don't remember a specific case, but I've definitely been there. And then when it moves there, you're probably not going to take action anyways, because you're like
Yeah.
you have fear of the market. You're like, oh, no, the chart doesn't look right. It's going to dip lower, isn't it? There's always some like doubt, and so it's like your emotions kind of get in the way a lot of times, and you might have an idea like, oh, if it dips to like 2 cents, then I'm going to deploy all my capital then. But then that chance comes, and you might not do it. So that's why, like I said, I think it's a better strategy just to kind of just set up regular buys. Just if just kind of stretch it out, right? And that way, if it does dip, you still have some more, but you're also buying today too.
Yeah, it's super true. Let me just read some of the comments here and just see if there's anything else that we can kind of collectively answer, or see if there's any questions here. Kate Feger, he says, nothing else continues or compares with compounding interest like you get with staking Hex. A lot of people don't get that or understand the how, but in time they will. And you had kind of mentioned that in the grassroots stream, was that, and same thing for myself, man. Like, sure, we had heard, hey, longer pays better. And I think you did a really good job, and I was going to clip it, and I still want to, where you had mentioned that, Richard's strategy from the beginning, it's never been that, hey, here's what you should do. It's always been, here's how the system is designed, here's how it works. And if someone wanted to maximize, the yield based on how the system's designed, then here's what they should do in that regard. But to your point, it's not like he ever had mentioned like, hey, you should just stake all your Hex Quattro Cinco. He kind of told us how it works and then allows the people to make the decision, which I thought that was really cool. But in Kate Feger's point about the share rate, what are your thoughts on the share rate? Because I had Crispy with hexfire.io, and his website does like a pretty good analysis of, just how we've gone from like 10,000 Hex per T share was the initial share rate. And then big payday happened, which some of us thought it was going to spike a little bit higher than it did. But that kind of mimics some of the compounding, compounding interest with, the shares getting more expensive every single day to buy. What are your thoughts on the share rate itself? Like, because over time, people, if they are waiting and they're not staking, then obviously they're just kind of losing out on some of that purchasing power.
Yeah, it's genius. Yeah, the longer you wait, you're kind of losing ground and letting everyone else participating in the system get ahead of you, right? So, yeah, that's another reason why, just sitting on the sidelines and waiting doesn't really always play out. You want to be more time in the market where you're earning yield, and because as the share rate goes up, it gets more and more expensive to get those shares, right? So you don't want to wait too long. Yeah, it's a pretty genius system. It also like always leaves meat on the bone, as they say, for newer people who are willing to wait longer, right? So if like somebody else got in a year ago, but they only staked for a year, you could get in this year and stake out longer than they did, and you're going to beat them, right? Even if they keep restaking for like 1-year stakes, that's still a pretty good APY. You're making like a 12% or something like that for a 1-year stake. But yeah, it just gets more and more expensive than to rebuy those shares. So yeah, it is a genius design. It's really cool. And that's why longer pays better, and why it's better just to stake it out longer.
Yeah, I've had that with some of my stakes. Even some of them I've ended, right, that happened in the very beginning, and luckily I still have a lot that are way out there. Obviously, those are the ones that are doing the best. But yeah, sometimes some of us might not have realized how powerful the shares were until a little bit, maybe halfway into the 351-day launch phase. But kind of like you had mentioned, for myself, you really realize some of the power of the system when you have say you have a stake that was, I don't know, 11,000 hex per T share, and you have X amount of T shares, and then you end it and you go to restake some of it. Maybe you scrape some of the yield and whatnot, but you got to restake some of it, and it's like, man, I'm getting half of the amount of T shares that I had when I initially had staked. So I either need to stake longer, or just accept that I'm going to get less T shares, or put more capital in to make up for that. So it is true, man.
To make it even more attractive now we got Hedron too. So you can stake it long, and then you got your Hedron paying you out that you could scrape anytime. So it's pretty awesome. There's nothing else in crypto like it, really. There's, like I said, there's very few things that I'm always keeping an open mind too, and I'm always looking for like the next, eventually maybe something will come up, but I haven't seen it yet. It's just hard to find. It's like, if people don't understand, like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to explain to someone that's not already in crypto and doesn't get it, but they're just like looking for the next shiny thing. And, I don't know. Hex is pretty rad. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And once you like dig in, it's weird because it's been so long since I've actually been read deep dive, and so it's hard to explain these things, and maybe I should revisit them so I can explain them better. But yeah, man.
No, yeah, I know what you mean. When Hedron first came out, it was like, okay, like this is really cool. Like Richard had kind of done so with Hex, putting all the upfront capital to create the smart contract, and then now it just exists, and whether people use it or not is up to them. And you're definitely right with things like Hedron, or even when Maximus first came out, it's like the community itself is already so generous, whether it's with their time, whether it's with answering people's questions, and now they're building things on top, or that kind of complement Hex that just are really going to make it, in my opinion, do a lot better in the future, and just give people more options, because so many people, and it's not that Hedron necessarily breaks the incentivization when it comes to staking, but other people do like that idea of the encapsulating of the stake. And say they had a Quattro Cinco stake, and they wanted to encapsulate it as the NFT and then sell it. People that might not have been willing to stake Hex before that, maybe now they are willing to. So it kind of just gets more people into it that wouldn't have been interested before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's definitely a market for it. And yeah, it's not like, encapsulated stakes are really cool. It's not something I'm particularly like super stoked about. But there definitely are people that there's a market for it, and there's people that like that kind of thing. And I realize there's, not everyone is into the stuff I'm into. Like, I've never cared for NFTs at all, or any of that kind of stuff. But there's definitely a market for it, and there's people that do want them, or at least did. I don't know if they do anymore. But
yeah. No, that's true, man. Yeah.
I was just curious about, I'm sure you've shared it on your stream before, but your story also, when did you get in, and how'd you find out about it, and then, start streaming and get where you are today?
So I don't know, I'd say with crypto itself, it was in 2017, and it actually was from Reddit, and it was from like the CNBC channel that my coworker would play at Centralink when we were working. But so I'd been on like, it was like Reddit, like gold and Reddit silver, like just the physical markets. Cause I was interested in, I'd always kind of been, similar to yourself. My dad would travel around the world, like when he was in the Navy, and he had like this kind of like this pill bottle of a whole bunch of different currencies. I thought that was kind of cool that you had mentioned a similar story. And then as far as the investing goes, I'd kind of gotten into, buying some silver and stuff. And one time on Reddit had read something that like, hey, Bitcoin, and I'd heard of Bitcoin once before, didn't really look into it though, but they had said like, Bitcoin is like the digital gold and Litecoin's like the digital silver. And so kind of looked into it a little bit more. And I don't know, Litecoin was maybe like 25, 27 bucks at the time. I opened up a Coinbase account early 2017. And like I said, I threw in like 50 bucks initially. And then, maybe another month later, another 50. And then I kind of just forgot about it. And then like 3 months later, I see it again, or I see it mentioned again, whether it was the Reddit or the television channel. And, that was kind of mid 2017 when we were kind of starting to experience some more pumpage. And then I look at my account and it had like tripled, and obviously it wasn't realized, it was just paper, but even that there was like, whoa, there's something here, and I've always liked the ideals of like cypherpunks, kind of just privacy and cryptography and things like that. And so the idea of cryptocurrency was really cool. And then, same thing to yourself. I don't know where specifically or kind of how I had stumbled across Richard, but I remember seeing his YouTube channel and seeing his self-help videos. And like you mentioned, kind of quirky, kind of weird, or just unique, I should say. Cause I remember seeing him with the top hat, like, I think maybe he used to have it as his profile picture, but him with the top hat, like in his first self-help videos. Uh-huh. And I was thinking, this guy looks interesting. So let me click on the videos. And then anyways, he started talking about Bitcoin and kind of some of his story. And, I had followed a lot of other people in crypto in 2017. Like there was this guy like Jason at 4 that I was following, and so many people that wanted to sell you something and that wanted to, sell you a dream that, hey, whether it's Tone Vase or whether it was this Jason at 4's course that I took, to convince you that, hey, you can make money trading, but why am I spending $3,000 on courses when it's supposed to be super profitable? So anyways, when Richard had called the top in 2017, it was similar to RG3. I've heard his story as well, where it's like, you don't want to believe it, and it's such the way that he does it and the way that he says things is so confidently and so clearly that it's like, man, who is this guy? Like, what makes him so confident in being able to say that? And so same thing, I had kind of just held my bags all the way down and just kept buying. It was Litecoin specifically that I was buying. And then honestly, I got really depressed, man. Like seeing Litecoin go from the top of 420 to so then I started buying it again at around like 350, 330. And then to see it go all the way back down to where I initially had bought it, like 27 to like $33, I was like, damn, I definitely missed the run on that one, which is fine, because it's all like a learning curve. And then when Richard had said that, hey, he could do a better Bitcoin, and he had started talking about Bitcoin hex and that he wants to develop something that, could provide a lot of value. That's kind of at the point where I was about to give up in crypto. And, instead of quitting, I just said, screw it. I'm going to sell all my Litecoin and the little bit of Bitcoin that I had. And I'm going to get into, Richard's product, I should say, because he was the only person that didn't, screw me. And it's not like the other people screwed me, but he's the only person that I listened to that his advice was actually sound. And then, so I'd been following him for a while, and I didn't really know that there was other people that had followed him or that had listened to him. And so joined the Telegram. That was the first time that I heard about Telegram. And then it was either Hexologist or RG3 that I had seen first, and I was like, okay, wait, so there's other people that are like me, like-minded people, and that's where I kind of just fell in love with it. And then the last thing I'll say is, especially in 2017, I had gone under like the Brian Jones pseudonym account that I still have as like a backup. And then it wasn't until Hex came out that with RG3 and Hexo, I saw them streaming with their faces. But I said, all right, man, this is something I can get behind. Let me turn on the live stream and join them. So that's kind of how I joined.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's a good point about what you said about Richard and what RG3 said about him. My story was the same. It was like when I discovered him, I think most people, he kind of like, if you don't know who he is, he says something and you're like, oh, this guy is full of shit, right? Like, how could he be so confident and so sure? And like, and I think there's a lot of people that discover him even today, probably especially like more today because of the way he's marketed himself. But it's like it is like a little cringy to some, and but that's like your initial like opinion of him. But if you have an open mind and you really just want to do well, and then you realize like, oh, all that shit he said was actually true. Like I remember when he said, like very, he's talking about the 10,000x thing, and people are like, oh, how can you make that claim? And it's like, dude, it's just what other coins have done, so this can do it too. I'm not saying it will, but it can. Right. And I remember once he said like, if I were you, I'd take all of my Bitcoin and go all in on Hex in the beginning. And I'm like, that's crazy, right? Like, but then you look at history and you're like, yeah, it actually played out. And same thing when Hex launched and it dipped down, and Peter McCormick was like, all the Bitcoin maxis were, talking shit and laughing, and, and he's like, well, you could double up your stack. You could get more if you buy, and it's like everything he says is like, it sounds maybe scammy to some at first, but then you realize like history shows it's like he's never really lied about anything or been dishonest or anything, right? It just might sound that way to some people, in the beginning, because they're just not used to someone talking so confidently about stuff like that.
Well, I agree, man. And like for me, just growing up and things like this, I've always cared about language, and like the intention of what you're saying and what words actually mean. And so kind of like you mentioned, Richard, he never said Hex was going to do a 10,000x. He said it was designed to do 10,000x. There's a huge freaking difference, what it's programmed and designed to do versus what it actually will do, or what the market will say that it's worth. So I definitely agree. And, that's also another thing that really solidified my confidence in the product itself was, day one when Hex first came out, Richard, he had been up for, I think he had said like 48 hours, he's kind of getting the shakes and stuff like that. But when I saw him, Tone Vase, and then 3 other lawyers, like 2 guy lawyers, and I think 1 girl or something. But when I had seen Richard, so confidently being able to, defend what he had put a heck ton of capital into, and got the audits done and got it complete. And then to see him kind of defend it against some of the people that were attacking him, it really just made me think like, okay, my money's on this horse right here. And it kind of just solidified it. And then, you say it's interesting because some of the people that I used to follow, Tone Vase, and I never really liked Peter McCormick, but I did follow him as well. And when you hear some of those people that I used to at least follow, or not necessarily look up to, but would follow, you see how low that they stoop to, and you see some of the ad hominem attacks and things like this. And it's like, man, that's a really, like when I see people ad hominiming attacking someone, it just shows me like, okay, that they lost that part of the argument. Like, why do they have to stoop to something that's not even relevant to attack the person? Yeah. So Peter McCormick's interview was definitely, one for the books. And, it's cool to see, as you mentioned, whether who was it? Like the Harry Dent guy, or McCormick or Giacomo, a whole bunch of people that a lot of the people that stood up against him have been wrong. And it's also interesting too that they can also be like the perfect counter trade indicators, where so it was big payday when we dropped like, I don't know, 80, 85%, right? 90. Yeah. McCormick, he's like, comes out of the freaking woodworks and is like, see, I told you Hex was a scam, and then they kept moving the goalpost. And, now the most recent time that we've dipped again heavily, he comes out of the woodworks again. And it's like, wait, but we've been up like, 1,000. No one else in crypto, not even Bitcoin or Ethereum or anyone, has the ability to say that they have, 100% uptime with, no downtime and just flawless execution. So that part I really like. And, the community itself too, you had mentioned that you'd kind of wanted to get into some of the participation and things like that. And it's awesome to see, man. Like, we can definitely learn from everyone. And I really enjoy it. This, like you had said with kind of some of the Bitcoin story, they hear about 6.9 million X, which just breaks your paradigm of thinking. But that didn't happen overnight, and most of the people that were mining their Bitcoin for free by double clicking an EXE, most of those people aren't here today. Most of those people sold on a double, or they sold early. So it's really cool to see, people staking for such a long time, because, kind of like you had mentioned, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And when you see people that are hard locked for such a long duration, it really just kind of confirms some of those similar beliefs that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Peter McCormick interview, man, those were great. That was like, because it was really cool that like Richard back then was like willing to talk to anyone, like anyone that wanted to talk to him. It's like, let's talk about it, let's debate. And I think the reason he was like so confident is because he had already had like his own community and Telegram channel, like vet all these things. Like, if you weren't there at the time, you don't realize that it's not like Richard just built this thing on his own and then like put it out on the blockchain and was like, here you go, guys, here it is. Like, there was a lot of thought that went into it and input from the community and people calling him out saying, you're wrong about this. And he would argue and be like, no, you're wrong. And then, but then there were like very few times, but there were a couple where he was like, oh, like, I mean, he doesn't really like say, I'm sorry guys, I was wrong. But, he kind of realized like, oh yeah, we have to change it, because the community members found like things that, so it's, I mean, it was very well thought out. And, it took like what, 2 or 3 years, 2.5 years, maybe, to develop and actually come out. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that. They just think it's this another token that he just put out like overnight and just markets like crazy. And that's the only reason it's going up. And that's really not the case. It's a lot of design that went into it.
Well, and you're right. And I can respect the hell out of someone that, it's kind of like, you mentioned music and stuff. And there are certain musicians that I'd follow from the early days that, they'd always contribute the success to their fans, and I always appreciated those people because, don't forget the people that got you to where you're at, once you do get successful. And then there's the opposite of people that, end up blowing up and then they just say like, screw the fans, and they kind of throw away what got them there. But as you say with Richard, I appreciate that he, as you say, like he's definitely, he's not just going to take someone's input without an explanation. And I would be the same way as well. But you'd kind of mention with, at first it was Bitcoin Hex, and then, and then like the adoption amplifier wasn't even a thing. And then they kind of did that to increase the adoption, which I'm freaking glad they did, because it worked out super well. And same thing with the referral and self-referral. But, to your point, the other day I had retweeted like an old post of, I don't know, it might've been early 2019. And so Richard did have the Hex logo that we see today. Was a little bit different, but it was like a red and gold color scheme, and he's like, how does this look? And so I kind of just retweeted that for the people that hadn't seen some of the things that we had seen in the Telegram. And, how cool is that people that have ideas of, something that they want to work as well, that we all kind of contributed in one way or another to what it is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wasn't it? I think it was Dev Kyle, who kind of had a big part. He talks about it. There's streams you can look up if for those who haven't seen it, but he talks about the the idea for the share rate increasing was never really a thing either until they realized this is a problem, because then if we didn't have that mechanism where the share rate ratchets up, it would just be more advantageous just to to get your stake it for a day, and then just keep like getting that yield, and then restaking the yield also, and then it compounds and you do better in the system than the people that just stake long term. So they needed a mechanism where the share rate increased to make it more advantageous to stay in for the long run, rather than just play the short term game of clicking buttons all day every day and restaking, right?
No, I agree. And, one thing that, to your point, Kyle had a huge contribution with that. And, something he did as well was, I guess it's called like Monte Carlo simulations, and so they would, because to your point, they do the share rate, and then, initially it was going to be like you could lock it for a max of like 50 years. And then they looked at some of the Ethereum blocks and things like that. And then they're like, okay, let's cut this down, because 50 years is too much for what the Ethereum system can do with the smart contract. So it is cool how much time goes into it. And when I think of kind of finishing and wrapping up and stuff, when I think of PulseChain and when I see some of the some of the people maybe getting down and out and stuff about just when they thought it was going to launch and where it's at right now, I know that Richard isn't ever going to do anything half-assed, like that he would rather take a little bit more time to make sure that something's done well, that is going to work for the long run. Because as you say, if they launched it without the way that the share rate was initially going to be, Hex would be a freaking failed project, and then Richard wouldn't have as much clout as he does today, aside from calling like the Bitcoin tops. So as far as PulseChain goes, people also have to realize like what a sacrifice is. I mean, I hear so many people that are like, man, I want my money back, Richard stole my money. And it's like, man, you go look up the definition of a sacrifice. And there was a couple of times where I went back to just the pulsechain.com website, and I think one of the first things that you see is some of the I don't know, definition and information of no expectation. So whenever PulseChain does launch, it that's kind of out of all of our control, but I think it'll be similar to Hex, where the wait will be well worth it, because people don't realize that Hex launched December 2nd, 2019, but shit, dude, it was like, I remember it was like the beginning of 2019 that that myself and Richard had kind of thought that it was going to launch. And then they kept doing some more development and some more work, and it took all the way until the end of that year. So whenever it launches, it'll launch, but I'm really looking forward to that day.
I agree with you 100%. Like, I'd rather wait, another whole year and have it be solid than have some half-assed blockchain put out that goes down all the time, like Solana, and, it has terrible price performance. Like, I'm not in this for like, short term. Like, I think Hexkins understand, like, if you've been in a while, it's a long-term play, right? And I agree 100%. I think it's better just to wait and have it be solid. And you see this so much with people, like you said, the sacrifice thing, people that like, what you're getting into. Like, it's called a sacrifice for a reason. You're basically just sending your money out there, or your coins out there into the ether. And there's like, it's very clear that you have no expectations. If this fails and doesn't work out, like, you took that risk. And, that would be terrible if it happened. And I don't think it's going to happen that way, but in the off chance, that it did, like, people need to own up for take responsibility for their actions, right? Like, the risk you're taking and what you're getting into. And it's just, it kind of like pisses me off when people get so, they'll like blame others, and it's like, bro, take responsibility for your own fucking actions, right? Like,
yeah,
like
that's so
if
true.
you want a safe investment, go like you don't want a safe investment. You want the mad gains, and you got to take some risk if you're gonna play that game, right? And sometimes things take longer than you expect. So yeah, I would tell everyone, be patient, and I think it's gonna work out pretty well in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the best thing that we can do. And like you said, often easier said than done, especially for most people. But I think it's a lesson no matter what age people are or where they're at in their journey. Like you said, take accountability for your actions, man. And I see so many people, whether it's stuff in the world or, the sacrifice or XYZ, where it's so much easier for them to blame it on someone else than to blame themselves, or maybe they took out leverage for something that they thought was going to launch sooner, and they're just not willing to accept that accountability. But at the end of the day, they have to face the decision, not anyone else, or they have to face like the consequence of that action. So yeah, man, I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. I mean, it's been like an hour, almost an hour and a half, an hour and 26 minutes.
Time flies. It was good talking to you, man. Yeah, it feels like it went by quick. Yeah, it's good to finally meet you and chat with you. Like I said, I've seen you on stream for a long time, and I got some respect for you. You're always chill and level-headed, and you seem like a great guy. So I hope to meet you in person one day.
Yeah, no, it sounds good, man. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on as well. And next time I'll try and figure out what the hell is going on with my webcam, because it's kind of like fading in from like a lighter to a darker right now. But no, yeah, the same thing. The conversation that I've always had with Hexicans, the time does fly, and that's how I know it's a good conversation. And same thing, I appreciate being able to learn from yourself and hear some of your experiences as well. So I guess your social media is in the description. Is that pretty much where people can find you if they want? Is just the twitter.com/Jimmy Diamond?
Yeah, on Twitter, it's Jimmy Diamond 369. And I also just set up yesterday, I got an Instagram account, Jimmy Diamond 369, and also TikTok. I'm trying to learn this new, like, I don't do Twitter, or TikTok, or like the social media thing, but I'm trying to like learn how to make little explainer videos and stuff like that. And I heard a good quote the other day that you got to be brave enough to be bad at something sometimes, and that's like, it's like, because you're gonna suck at it when you start, but that's how you get better, is sucking at it. So yeah, I'm working on it. I'm trying to get myself out there more. Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Of course, very last thing I'll say is that's what I always heard RG3 saying, is that, he'd mention like falling forward or falling on your face as quick as you can and then getting back up. And, you look at the most successful people in the world, and, not none of it, but most of it isn't luck. Most of it, people always see the final result, or, the success someone has, and they don't realize all of the time it took to get there, or all the sacrifices that they made, or all of the freaking failures that they had before they, got that one hit. So yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on as well. And I'll definitely put your Instagram and TikTok there too, in the bottom as well. So
yeah, there's not much on there yet. There's like one video, but I'll probably upload stuff to YouTube too, just to get a YouTube channel going. I think it's just Jimmy Diamond on YouTube. But yeah, perfect. Maybe I don't know if you're cool with it. I can grab this video from you and just upload it there. Just so
dude,
the stuff.
Of course. Cool. Yeah, I can, if you want, I can, because it takes maybe because from my experience, it takes like 12 to 18 hours for it to process, and then to be able to download it if you don't have the native video. I can download the video after this on StreamYard and just send it to you in Telegram or something like that. The 1080p version, just for you to do that as well. But we'll chat a little bit more about that offline. So without further ado, everyone, thanks again, man, for coming on. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, good chatting with you. Take care.
Peace, guys.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Yeah. Say hey. Say hey, hey, say hey, say hey, say hey, stake that, 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 stake that. Every time I look up, price went up. I go to the store, come back, price went up. Every time I look up, price went up. No matter what I do, price is still going up. Hell yeah. Ching, ching, motherfucker. Ching, ching. I am the book. Ching, ching, motherfucker. I just keep hitting jackpot after motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch!
Thank you, Richard, for creating and founding the most amazing and disruptive financial technology cryptocurrency ever. Thank you, sir. And nice streams, Mr. BallietBran. It's fabulous.